The silence of the void is a lie told to children in flight school. Space is never silent, not when you are encased in 3 inches of vibrating titanium, screaming through the electromagnetic soup of the Veil of Atropos. Inside the cockpit of the Galactica, Dr. Aris Birch gritted his teeth against the headache that had been throbbing behind his eyes for 3 days. The ship was groaning, the hull plating expanding and contracting under the barrage of ionized dust and radiation that defined this sector of the galaxy. To the rest of the scientific community, the Veil was a navigational hazard, a celestial dead zone where ships went to disappear. To Aris, it was a hiding spot. Nothing in nature generated the kind of rhythmic, repeating signal he had isolated 4 months ago. It wasn't a pulsar, and it wasn't background noise. It was a heartbeat. Proximity alert. The ship's AI, Raven, intoned, its voice clipping with static. Shield integrity at 40%. Aris, the particulate density is increasing. We are effectively flying through a sandblaster. Aris ignored the warning, his fingers flying across the haptic interface, adjusting the sensor gain. Hold it together, Raven. We're punching through the cloud layer. Whatever is broadcasting that signal is right inside the eye of the storm. The nebula outside was a bruised tapestry of violet and necrotic greens, swirling with a violence that defied the vacuum. The Galactica shuddered violently, a warning klaxon blaring as the starboard thruster coughed. Then, instantaneously, the turbulence vanished. The visual feed cleared. The screaming radiation sensors flat-lined into a hum. Aris looked up through the canopy and stopped breathing. There was no star. There was no black void. There was only a wall, stretching up, down, left, and right, filling the entirety of the visual field, was a surface of matte black geometric plates. It curved away at distances that induced vertigo, a curvature so slight it implied a diameter of hundreds of millions of kilometers. It wasn't a planet. It was a shell. My God, Aris whispered, the breath fogging the glass. It's real. A Dyson Sphere. The theoretical pinnacle of civilization. A megastructure completely enclosing a star to capture 100% of its energy output. Humanity had theorized them for centuries, but the engineering required was impossible. Yet here it sat, hidden inside a nebula that acted as a camouflage cloak, unseen for perhaps millions of years. Raven scanned for entry. There has to be a port, a vent, something. Scanning. The AI paused, processing the impossible data. I am detecting a thermal exhaust port, equatorial region. Diameter, 500 kilometers. It is currently open. Aris pushed the throttle. The Galactica was a mote of dust against the side of a mountain, descending toward the dark aperture. As they flew closer, the texture of the sphere revealed itself. It wasn't smooth metal. The surface was a fractal landscape of towers, trenches, and conduits, a city the size of a solar system, dead and cold on the outside. They passed into the exhaust port, navigating a tunnel large enough to swallow a moon. The darkness was absolute until they breached the inner shell. If the outside was impressive, the interior was a religious experience. Aris shielded his eyes. In the center of the vast, hollow sphere sat a star, a red dwarf, dim and angry, suspended in a web of magnetic fields that were visible as shimmering ribbons of light. The inner surface of the sphere, the side facing the sun, was a verdant, endless landscape. Continents larger than Earth floated in oceans of liquid that gleamed like mercury. But it was the silence that chilled him. There were no radio waves. No traffic. No chatter. The sphere was intact, the machinery was working, but the builders were gone. Landing trajectory plotted, Raven announced. There is a docking spire extending from the northern hemisphere of the sector below. It appears to be a control hub. The Galactica touched down on a platform of iridescent alloy. The gravity was artificial, perfectly comfortable at 1G. Is suited up, checking the seals on his EVA suit. He grabbed his pulse rifle, though he suspected he wouldn't need it. This place didn't feel hostile, it felt like a tomb. Stepping out onto the platform, the airlock cycling with a hiss, Aris tested the atmosphere. High oxygen content, traces of argon and noble gases. It's breathable, Aris, but I'd keep the helmet on. We don't know about pathogens. Aris nodded, walking toward the massive archway leading into the spire. The scale of the architecture was oppressive. Vaulted ceilings soared kilometers high, supported by pillars that pulsed with a faint blue bioluminescence. He walked for an hour, passing through halls lined with statues of a species he couldn't recognize, tall, multi-limbed, with elongated craniums. They looked serene, carved in moments of contemplation. He reached the central control room, a circular chamber suspended over a shaft that seemed to drill down into the very crust of the machine. In the center was a console, simple, elegant, waiting. Aris approached it, his heart hammering against his ribs. He placed a gloved hand on the surface. The room exploded with light. Holographic data streams erupted from the floor, swirling around him in a tornado of alien syntax. Raven. Translate. Find the syntax patterns, working. It's a history, Aris. It's a log. The holograms shifted, forming images. A star system teeming with life. A sun that was aging too fast, turning into a red giant that would consume their worlds. The species, the architects, realized they could not flee. The distances were too great, their lives too short. So, they built the sphere. Not just to harness power, but to control it. Aris watched the visual history unfold. They didn't just enclose the star. They engineered it. They used the sphere to strip mine the star's mass, stalling its expansion, freezing it in a state of suspended animation. They had paused the death of their sun, but the cost was high. The energy required to maintain the stasis field meant there was nothing left for the civilization. The lights went out. The cities went cold. They uploaded themselves, Raven whispered, the AI sounding almost reverent. Look at the data streams, Aris. The sphere isn't a power plant, it's a server. The builders had converted their consciousness into digital format, storing trillions of minds within the crystal lattice of the sphere's shell. They were living in a simulated paradise, powered by the caged sun, waiting for a solution to entropy that might never come. Aris stared at the console. He was standing in the largest graveyard in the universe, which was also the largest nursery. Suddenly, the platform beneath him shuddered. The holographic storm turned red. Aris. Raven barked. The nebula outside. The storm is intensifying. A coronal mass ejection from the trapped star is destabilizing the magnetic containment. The system is reacting to your presence. It thinks you're a contaminant. I need to download this. The world needs to know. Aris fumbled with his data spike, jamming it into the console. The machine screamed. A psychic pressure that brought him to his knees. He wasn't just downloading files. He was hearing them. A billion voices crying out in a chorus of static and dreams. He saw their lives, their loves, their fear of the dark. He saw the moment the last physical switch was thrown, the moment they abandoned their bodies to become ghosts in the machine. Whole integrity dropping. Aris. We have to leave now. The spire began to retract. The floor tilted. Aris ripped the data spike free, scrambling back toward the airlock. The statues in the hall seemed to watch him now, their serenity replaced by a looming judgment. He sprinted, his breath ragged, the suit's servos whining as he pushed them to the limit. He reached the Galactica just as the docking clamps released. He threw himself into the pilot's seat, slamming the throttle forward. The ship shot away from the platform, banking hard to avoid a falling debris tower. The interior of the sphere was changing. The calm, verdant surface was rippling, the oceans turning into roiling waves of plasma. The immune system of the megastructure was waking up. Drones, shaped like silver teardrops, detached from the ceiling kilometers above, swarming toward the ship. Punch it, Raven! Get us to the exhaust port. Aris diverted all power to engines, the G-force slamming him into the seat. The Galactica became a streak of fire, weaving through the colossal machinery of the inner shell. Lasers traced the air around them, vaporizing the sensory arrays. They hit the tunnel, the darkness swallowing them again. The flight out was a blur of collision alarms and structural groans. And then, silence. They burst out of the nebula, the violet clouds falling away. Behind them to reveal the cold, hard starlight of normal space. The Galactica drifted, engines smoking, hull scarred and pitted. Aris slumped in his seat, the data spike clutched in his hand. He looked back at the nebula. It looked innocent again, just a swirl of dust in the dark. But he knew, inside that cloud, a star was in prison, and an entire civilization was dreaming an endless dream, waiting for a morning that would mark their extinction. He looked at the drive containing the data. It was heavy, heavier than it had any right to be. He had the proof. He had the discovery of the millennium. But as he spooled up the FTL drive, Aris Birch wondered if he had the right to wake them up. He keyed the comms, preparing his report, and then hesitated. He deleted the coordinates. He kept the data, the history, the culture, but he deleted the map. Aris? Raven asked. You are purging the navigational log. I know, Aris said, watching the nebula recede into the distance. Some things aren't meant to be found. They bought themselves time. I won't be the one to spend it for them. He engaged the jump drive, leaving the ghosts to their slumber, the lone guardian of the hospice of the sun.